I just want to get Eric McDaniel, who is one of our guests this evening, to pop up on that Zoom to join us for our conversation, focusing on what is ahead in this race. And he has shown up in Zoom now, so I'm going to bring him up. Professor McDaniel, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and if anybody is unfamiliar with your work, you work there at UT Austin as an associate professor of government, specializing in American politics. This is really your bread and butter to focus on what's unfolding tonight. We showed that Governor Abbott and Beto O'Rourke are well ahead of their primary fields. Any surprises there? I would imagine not.
No, not at all. I think Governor Abbott having so many challenges is maybe a bit unique, but it's clear that I think everybody knew going in that he was going to win, and it's clear that it's going to happen. Beto O'Rourke, a well-known name compared to everybody else, so nothing is a surprise here.
Yeah, and we are really focusing on what's going to happen in November because these two candidates have pretty much been sizing each other up and expecting to face one another in November. And recently, Emerson College, Nexstar, our parent company, and The Hill posted these results showing what issues are most important to people: immigration, leading among those, healthcare, inflation, voting rights. We also asked about grid concerns, showing that the majority of people who responded to this are either very concerned or somewhat concerned with the stability of the electric grid. Do you imagine those are the issues that are going to really guide us from this point forward going into November?
But so, I mean, being a border state, immigration is always going to be an issue. The grid is a major issue, and then on top of that, with inflation growing, that there's going to be concerns about how can we stop this, who can stem this, and keep the economy going strong in the state.
Additionally, we have seen another issue pop up somewhat recently after Governor Abbott directed the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services to investigate gender-affirming care for transgender children as child abuse. We know now that a lawsuit is claiming that an investigation is underway. At least that has come out to light today. Where do you see this? How do you see this particular issue unfolding and factoring into the conversation, again, months away from the general election?
Well, I think when it comes to the LGBTQ T issues, is one of the things is transgender issues are really the most controversial. We've been able to overcome a lot of things with gay marriage, but the transgender issue, I think, is something that's going to be the hardest for Americans to understand and to deal with. Now, one of the things that's clear about Governor Abbott is that he is a culture warrior. He's made it very clear that he's engaged in the culture wars, and this is part of it, and it's helped him find electoral success. So I do think that this will remain an issue, specifically if there's nothing being done with the grid, that I'm expecting him to lean a little bit more on this because this is where he's strong, but if there are problems with the grid, that's where he's weak. And I think if any place where O'Rourke can find success against Abbott, it's regarding the grid.
Another thing we're really paying attention to this evening is the Trump effect. A lot of endorsements landed this particular primary season since we are leading the country in the midterm primaries. Trump endorsed, I believe, what was it, 23 incumbents, maybe 32 Republicans in Texas in total. So this really will play a factor, and we did some polling about this too. And as you can see right here, more people are likely to support that candidate if that person has the endorsement of Donald Trump. What are you thinking this will play out tonight in terms of the former president's involvement with the elections?
I think the way to see its effect best is the attorney general race. Given that you have two well-known figures, you have Ken Paxton, the incumbent, and then George P. Bush, the challenger, who's again well-known, coming from a well-known family, that you see that Paxton, who has had a number of issues, has been endorsed by President Trump, and we'll see if that endorsement is enough to get him over the line for the primary. And there are a lot of concerns about what will happen to those individuals who may have said no, President Trump did lose the 2020 election, as well as those who voted for his impeachment. So these are really big issues to take a look at and pay attention to as we try to see the future of the Republican Party in the state of Texas.
If you're just joining us, Eric McDaniel is an associate professor of government from UT Austin. He's kind of weighing in on some of the directions of and readouts of what we're seeing in the results so far. We will show you some updated numbers coming up in just a few moments, so please stay with us for a little while longer. But Professor McDaniel, I did want to ask you about we see, President Trump's involvement with the Republican side of Texas politics, but on the Democratic side, a lot of eyes are watching some of these progressive candidates and how they might fare coming out of these primaries. What strikes your eye? What catches your attention in those races?
I think it's really interesting. What I'm expecting is in Austin for progressive candidates to do extremely well, but as you move to like the suburbs, you're probably going to find the more moderate candidates doing well. It's really a big fight within the Democratic Party to figure out what the identity of the party will be. They believe that even though they were able to secure the White House, secure the Senate and the House in 2020, that they could have done much better. And they felt that the progressives were holding them back, whereas the progressives are saying that, no, we're not holding you back. It's the moderate message that isn't getting people out. And so they're having an internal fight about who they are and what their identity will be. I think their fight is much more serious than we're seeing going on with the Republicans. I think the Republicans have found a formula that works, and Democrats are still trying to find that formula, and we'll see who wins out.
Yeah, that will definitely be something to watch. We're going to show people some updated numbers about some of the congressional races, particularly with Congressional District 35, 37, and 28 coming up in just a little bit. We're really focusing on some of these key statewide races right now. So, Professor McDaniel, what else are you watching tonight? I mean, there's so much to kind of take in, and while some of the maybe key races like the governorships in those two primaries aren't that surprising with the results that we're seeing so far, what else do you have an eye on out there tonight?
I think it's important to pay attention to the new congressional districts, where you have some places where incumbents are going up against another incumbent, and who wins out there. I think that can really give you a good idea of where the parties are going. To me, that really sticks out as critical to understanding the future of the Republican as well as the future of the Democratic Party, is who's winning out when these head-to-head matchups between incumbents. Then also there's the concern about, what is the turnout going to look like now, given the voting law changes compared to what they looked like in 2020 or in 2018. So I think those are some of the primary concerns, or things that I'm really interested in learning more about.
While I have you on the line, Professor McDaniel, I just wanted to show really quickly some of the updated numbers, if you'll just give me a second to pull those up. We wanted to show, again, people who are just joining our live stream that the earliest numbers are coming in. Let's just refresh this page really quickly so that we can show you what the latest numbers are in the Texas primary election. Just a few moments ago, we saw that Greg Abbott, the incumbent Republican governor here in Texas, is leading in his primary at the moment with about 12% of the votes counted so far. On the Democratic side, Beto O'Rourke holds an incredibly comfortable lead there against his four other challengers in that race. Scrolling down just a little bit more to the Texas Lieutenant Governor's race, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick comfortably ahead of his opponents there in that primary. Additionally, on the Democratic side, which may turn out to be a bit of a closer race there, we're seeing the former candidate in this race, Mike Collier, ahead at the moment with just about 45% of the vote. Again, it's very early in that count with Michelle Beckley and Carla Braley trailing behind there. Is this a race that Democrats could potentially pick up, Eric McDaniel, in your kind of calculus of where things stand at this moment?
I think that, so again, Lieutenant Governor Patrick is a bit of a lightning rod. But I don't think it's enough to really hurt him. I think what's really going to have to happen is that there's something that is really sour with Republicans in order for them to not vote for Dan Patrick. I would assume if something happens where they're soured on Governor Abbott and they're soured on the lieutenant governor, the Democrats might have a chance. It's not really clear. I think a lot of people are looking at the Attorney General's race as kind of the best chance that they have, especially if Ken Paxton wins. But I do think that the Lieutenant Governor's race might be will be significantly closer than the governor's race. But I still think that Lieutenant Governor Patrick will prevail in the end.
Well, we will be watching those races very, very closely throughout this night. So, Professor McDaniel, thank you so much for sticking around for us for a little while and patiently providing your expertise and insight. We will check in back in with you a little bit later tonight. So, thanks for being here.